Today, we both loved working at Nintendo, but there was this one specific moment where we were like, this is it, we quit, it's over. And we're gonna tell you that story today.
Yeah, that was really quite the moment for both of us. Somehow we both got tangled up in this web of nonsense, and we aim to be very honest in our content. So I think we are typically very supportive and positive on Nintendo, but this is a time where maybe we were not.
Exactly. There's always positives and negatives to everything.
That's life.
That is life, and this is one of those moments. I don't know what reliving this moment
Your
is
life
gonna
is
do.
getting a pie in the face. We all live different lives, but there's highs and lows.
There's highs and lows.
Yes.
In this podcast, there are also highs and lows. We're going to talk about this moment, which was terrible, but we also have a really amazing guest joining us today. The legendary Victor Lucas is going to tell us everything about his incredible 30-year-plus career in video games. If you guys don't know him, who are you? He is the amazing host and creator of Electric Playground.
Yes.
And you've known Victor longer than you've known me, we discovered, which was like crazy.
I had to go back and count, and I've known him for about 20 years now.
Whoa.
And he is just one of these people who has been in games media for so long, is at every big event, is out there filming interviews, and again, has just been a constant of this industry over the decades. So we want to dig into his career, hear some of his great stories, talk about how the industry's changed and how he's been working with Nintendo.
Yeah, he's really amazing.
We reconnected with him at Summer Game Fest a few weeks ago, and I hadn't seen him for a while. It was definitely pre-pandemic, but also he's based in Canada, so Nintendo of Canada is like, all right, he's one of ours. We'll handle him media-wise.
You guys don't get him.
So I had kind of lost touch with him a little bit, but he is such a great guy, and again has like so many just interesting stories about being in games for so long. I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Yes, exactly. You guys probably already know, but we are on vacation. We have been on vacation, but of course...
This is hologram Krysta.
This is like an AI version of me.
Real Krysta's on a beach somewhere.
I wish that could be how it worked. Like I could just do like a little Tupac, like little...
There we go.
A little hologram
Through
here.
the power of artificial intelligence?
In this little chair, just press that little button, a little mini Krysta pops up. Alas, we do not have the production budget for that. But of course the podcast had to keep going on. So we did a few of these pre-recorded episodes where we saved our juiciest stories just for these. But we're back. Next week
will
be a non-hologram versions of us. Be real
and
life.
We haven't been doing the news in these episodes because obviously it's been, happening while we haven't been there. But we are going to have a lot of news to catch up on in next week's episode. So
and games we're playing.
It'll be fun. Vacation games. They're stacking up. So that'll be a fun one.
Yes.
Shall we get into this? We both had a moment of hesitation.
I know. I just don't want to get into this. Let's just take a collective breath in and out and get into it.
So this is a story from 2021, so
fairly
relatively
recent.
Late in our careers at Nintendo, and more specifically around E3 2021, which was still very much in the teeth of the pandemic.
Right.
Remember E3 2020, E3 got canceled kind of last minute.
Right.
There was no E3. It was just, people, Twitter announcements left and right. Like people were just trying to make sense of what was happening.
Scrambling to make sense of it.
2021, it was the entirely virtual E3, which was a big experiment by the ESA, but pretty much, the big players mostly bought into it, and one of those was Nintendo. And I remember, Greg Miller was hosting it, and they were trying to do a lot. The ESA was. I think they probably bit off more than they could chew.
Yeah.
In terms of the production and just the challenges of doing an E3 that different, but I do give them, some props for at least trying to do it.
Yeah.
Because they could have just been like, we're not doing this either.
Right. I think that, again, within the sort of the mist of the pandemic, there was so much conversation of shifting things to digital only. I think Nintendo obviously were in a much better position than most, where they had been doing this via the Nintendo Direct for long before the pandemic happened. So they already had this medium. So their decision to, participate, to support what the ESA was doing with the digital E3 was notably quite a bit easier, I think, than some other companies. But yeah, way to go, ESA, for attempting it. Didn't really go that well, and now E3 is gone. So I guess whatever. But you can read into that how you want to. But it was definitely a weird time.
It was.
Like, we were all kind of in a weird place as well. We had all been sort of working from home. Just the mental state of everyone, I think, was in a very fragile place.
Definitely
in general. And
Definitely
we just
was.
were not. We were collectively, as like a human population, I don't think we were not doing well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so it was a very different type of E3, but from a Nintendo standpoint, tried to fit what this E3 was into the pre-existing, Nintendo approach to E3. So somebody was appointed to be the lead of E3 like I had been years ago.
Yeah.
This was somebody who was on our team, somebody who had done it multiple times before, and somebody who actually, in contrast to me, who didn't want that,
wanted it badly.
actually enjoyed doing this.
Was my direct report.
And was glad to do it. So I think we were happy to have that person at the forefront because, this is a thankless job in the truest sense of the word. So it's great that we have somebody at least who is glad to try and wrangle this thing.
Yeah, and it was such a weird thing to wrangle too, because again, we were all kind of trying to feel it out and just understand what the scope of this ESA digital event was going to be and how we make sure that Nintendo is showing up in the right way.
Yeah, so I want to retroactively give this person a lot of credit for doing a very hard thing. But, at the centerpiece of the Nintendo E3 experience, 2021 was, of course, a Nintendo Direct.
Right.
And this was the Direct where Metroid Dread was first announced. I went back and I checked, and I think the big closer was a segment with Mr. Aonuma where he revealed Skyward Sword HD.
Yep.
Definitely not like
an
all-timer Direct, but solid enough.
Yeah.
And I think we were feeling good going into that one. There was definitely a lot of excitement about revealing Metroid Dread. And I think we've talked before about the energy around the name Dread and how people I'm going to let you know the name.
The secret name.
And sometimes people didn't understand the significance.
Sometimes people did, though. Sometimes people did.
And they're like,
I got it.
Yes, and what else should I know? So
the game looked amazing, so we knew that was going to be like the hit of the show.
Exactly. And there were some other activities that we were doing after that, which were again like trying to make the most of this. Where like we did like the Zoom roundtable with Mr. Sakamoto.
Yes, that's right.
It tried to be kind of like this hosted event where people could attend this and ask questions and hear from him. I sat in on that, and that was very cool. So again, we were just trying to make the best of a strange situation.
Yeah.
So, the planning was going on. It was going fine. The Direct was done, and we were all feeling good about getting this thing kicked off and putting this Direct out into the world. But things went off the rails the night before the Direct was supposed to air.
The Direct was airing at 9 a.m.
Very early the next morning. And I got an email from this person who was the E3 lead at about, this was probably like 8 p.m. something, so we're getting a little bit late. It was not
after hours.
It was not like my normal working hours.
Although we were working around the clock at that point, so there really wasn't
anything
hours.
Goes.
Yeah.
And this person says I just got a pretty strange request from Japan that I want to loop you in on.
Right.
So look forward to that. And, I get added to this email chain, and there's some conversation happening around co-streaming of the Nintendo Direct.
Right.
Please explain to the good people what co-streaming is if they don't know.
So co-streaming is basically like if some sort of broadcast was happening. So let's say Jeff Keighley is broadcasting Summer Game Fest. You, as a content creator, is allowed to stream live that event and maybe you're doing a reaction to it. Maybe you're just streaming the event on your channel.
It's like doing a reaction, basically.
Yeah.
Where you have the event and then you're like in the corner adding some commentary to it.
Exactly.
That's what that means.
And it's very, as you guys know, super like popular and normal.
Yeah, it's a staple of content creation. People love it, for a reason. There are people who are, extremely good at it.
Right.
And, some people prefer to watch along with their favorite content creator to get their commentary as it's happening. So, this was not like a new concept or anything at this time, co-streaming. But anyway, this message was saying like, we cannot let people co-stream the Nintendo Direct. We have a huge problem. And it's like, oh, all right, well, that's an unexpected little monkey wrench to come out at the last minute.
Yeah.
And again, like I got added to this chain, but I was kind of sitting back and I was like, let's just see what happens here.
Yeah.
And, the right questions were being asked of like, please explain why? Like, what is the issue? What is prompting this concern?
Right.
And we weren't really getting to an answer, but there was an urgent message. It was like, we are about to put out a tweet telling people that they cannot do this.
And I think we went down the path, too, of like, as the email chain was going and trying to stop them from tweeting about it, is like, do they understand the definition of co-streaming? Because we had to define it a lot of times to people, and they didn't understand. Like, we were trying to explain to them what it was, and they were not getting it.
This was one of the fundamental issues at play here, was people not understanding streaming.
Right.
And that wasn't just in Japan. Like, that was on our side as well.
It was on the US side as well.
We were elevating this of like, hey, there's this weird discussion that's playing out now. It's about co-streaming. It's like, well, what is that?
What's that?
What does that mean? And we try to explain. It's like, well,
I don't get it.
Why would anybody want to do that? What's the interest in that? And this plays into like, the company just had like a poor grasp on streaming overall.
Right.
Like we would occasionally, people would ask, I don't know why they would ask like HR, like regular employees, like, can I stream this game on my personal Twitch channel?
Right.
And of course the person in HR would be like, I don't know. And they would like end up asking somebody in legal. And then the person in legal would be like, well, do you have a license to stream this game?
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what?
What?
And at that point we would get brought in. It's like, where has this conversation gone off the rails?
Yeah, but that was the issue, is that not only on the Japan side, but on all the higher ups on the Nintendo of America side, no one understood what co-streaming was, let alone what streaming was.
So it was like, well, can we just, ask Twitch to like disable co-streaming or like what, like how, surely there's a button that can be deactivated or whatever. And it's like, oh boy. So basically they were like, we are going to put out this tweet because of this issue.
Yeah.
I will say, eventually we did get the proper explanation of why. That was weeks after.
No, it was like months after.
It was a long time after.
It was a long time.
It was such like a hot item. It was like, we have to do this now. We'll explain later. Yeah. Basically, was the deal. And it's like, and again, it's like, we are about to put out this tweet. And we want you to do the same. And at this point, I'm like, I don't like where this is going. Again, the person who was the lead was doing the right things, asking the right questions.
Yeah.
But it became clear to me that eventually I was going to be brought into this because I was the person who was in charge of social at the time.
Yeah.
I needed to basically approve that action to put out this tweet. And what I told this guy on the side, it was like,
we're not doing this.
No, what I said was, I am not going to engage in this conversation. If you get asked, I am unavailable. Just say like I went to bed. I needed to get an early start on the E3. Like I needed to go do my, rise and grind.
Basically, like hide so you don't get asked.
Exactly.
So you can't say no.
Right.
I mean, you can't say yes or no.
So keep me out of this because I have to say yes for this to happen.
Yeah, and I won't say yes.
And I won't.
And I won't say anything.
And this is the way that we can do this.
Yeah.
It's like, if you just keep me out of this. He's like, okay, fine. And I know, like, he, had a conversation with somebody at Twitch about it, and, they were equally confused about it. But again, it was like, somebody got to be in their bonnet about this co-streaming.
Right.
To the extent that they were like, we have to put out this last second post. And like, we tried so hard to tell them, like, this is going to be a big issue and extremely confusing for people on, less than 12 hours before this
Please
direct
note
happens.
the time stamp of this tweet, which was 10:09 p.m.
So here's the tweet that the folks in Japan eventually put out, and this is the translated version that you can get direct on Twitter. It says, "Request, please refrain from mirroring the video and audio of Nintendo Direct during the live stream. Simultaneous viewing without mirroring is permitted. After the live stream of Nintendo Direct has ended, you can post a video that includes the video as long as the content complies with the guidelines."
Oh my God.
What guidelines? I don't know.
Made up ones?
But you better follow them.
Yeah.
So not only is it an ambiguous request, this is a strangely worded translation as well, where it's like, what exactly
are you asking me not to do?
Mirroring the audio?
Without video and audio?
Fine. So they eventually put this out, and there was, immediately like coverage on it, people asking questions.
Yep.
We had our own Nintendo creator program where, a lot of people were excited to do it. And we were getting questions from all of them of like, what does this mean for me? Like, obviously, the last thing they want to do is get in trouble.
Right.
Because they're like, we're part of this program.
Right.
We want to do.
We want to stay as part of this program. We don't want to make Nintendo mad.
We want to stay in the good graces of Nintendo, but you put out this last second thing that I don't understand.
Yeah. So we basically had to do that same thing where we abstained from getting involved.
Because we didn't understand the request either, because it was not getting explained to us.
Right, right.
So basically, my mentality was like, I'm unavailable. Do not ask me to speak on this in any capacity. Like, I'll talk to whoever behind the scenes, and I was doing that. But it was like, we just need to get the clock moving.
Yeah.
We need
need to get there.
Yeah, we need this thing to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, can I hit a fast forward button on life?
Yeah.
And get to 9 o'clock so this direct can happen?
Once the direct happens, it'll be fine because we'll be over it.
Man.
And then the thing with the content creators that were in the Nintendo program is like they were like asking us questions, we just wouldn't reply. And so basically, like, they came to their own good conclusion of like, maybe this is only for the Japanese audience. I'm going to do it anyway from the US side. And we're like, don't say no and don't say yes.
On one hand,
let them do it.
It's definitely not the perfect solution to not respond. But again, we didn't understand the nature of the request itself either. So
and it was 10 p.m.
We didn't feel like we could give a definitive answer.
Yeah.
Because I think this is just out of the blue. This people like, you have to do this, you have to do this. Like, with no explanation why.
Right, right.
Oh my gosh. So
that was 10 p.m.
Right, and again, it got everybody spun up, like all the people.
It was like into the night.
What does it mean? And then it's like, now I need to explain co-streaming to you for the 19th time.
Right.
Because nobody understands what it is, and we want to delete the button to co-stream.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and it got to this point, and here's a tweet from Twitch. Nintendo tweeted from their official account that co-streaming today's event is not allowed, differing from years past.
Oh boy.
Well, /Twitch Gaming has permission to air the show. We won't be airing the event because all creators can't co-stream. So again, I think they were just taken aback by this as well. And it was like, this kind of show of solidarity to other content creators who maybe can't do this.
But maybe can?
We won't do it either, just to be safe. So it was an extremely confusing and frustrating time where it's like, that sucks when somebody's like, you have to do this. Can you tell me why? No, just do it.
Just do it. And then like, please try to explain your reasoning behind it. Okay, I'm going to explain it to you, but the reason doesn't make sense at all.
Right. So it just didn't feel good to be like, we have expertise in this space. We want to help defray this situation, but you are not helping us do that. And you are just pushing on us, insisting that we do this thing that probably seemed like a bad thing to do.
Right.
So unless you can give us more context, more explanation about what is happening, I don't really feel good about doing it.
Right.
So basically, but everybody was bought in of like, we're just gonna wait this out, basically.
That was it. We basically had no other solution for it.
Yeah.
Except for wait it out.
Right.
And just do not confirm or deny anything for the next how many hours.
Yeah.
10 hours or whatever it was.
And again, I don't want to get into what exactly the rationale was, but again, it took us weeks, if not months, to understand what that was.
Yeah.
You do occasionally see, like in the fine print of like a state of play blog post, you will see something similar to this, but it's very softly worded of like, well, you probably can, but we can't assume responsibility, blah, blah, blah.
It's like there's some legalese around like the ownership of the content.
Right.
Like that kind of stuff.
And the nature of the ownership in different formats.
Right.
again, I don't want to get into what it is because it's confusing, but there was a kernel of something that in a strict legal perspective, they were getting at it, but they were not explaining to us in any way, and were being extremely aggressive about we have to sabotage the Nintendo Direct right now. It's like, oh my gosh.
You're hours away from this.
We've been working for months. These developers have put, all their effort into these games that we're going to showcase, and you want to introduce this weird, wild card factor that is going to make people have bad feelings about this Direct at the last second? Do you really want to do this?
It's like you're just setting yourself up to fail with this really stupid distraction that nobody asked for, nobody wanted.
Right, and it's that's what we try to do, every day is eliminate distractions, let the content speak for itself, put the content out in the best possible light. And now you, of all people, are telling us to do this weird thing that's going to create a huge distraction.
Yeah, and it was so ironic because they would lecture us all the time about how we can't be distracting people from the content and how we had to do all these things to make sure the games shone themselves. And yet they were the ones introducing this mother of all distraction. The night 10 p.m. the night before an E3 Nintendo Direct was going to air.
Yeah, so,
it was unbelievable.
Our guy on the lead, he did a great job of just buying time. Everybody eventually on our side bought in of we're not going to do this, we're just going to wait. But, these tweets went out from different places, and it definitely did create a stir. So, I went to bed thinking, gosh, this company know what it's doing with the stuff.
The explanation of streaming and creators was extremely
the understanding
frustrating.
Of streaming and how creators stream and how they want to interact with their audiences. Their whole reaction of why would anybody want to watch that?
And it was not even from just Japan. It was from the leadership on the Nintendo of America side too. And that was my entire job.
And
was to do this. Was to do the creator stuff. And so just to get the sense of my job is not only not important to you at all, but you're actively sabotaging it.
And there were, as those conversations went on, there were people who would bring up, I don't know if they were trying to devil's advocate it or what, but they're maybe it is good if we ban co-streaming, because what if those people say something bad about Nintendo on a stream, and then that goes out to all of these people, and just let the people watch it on its own. Maybe we should do this.
Okay, I can't talk to you.
Yeah, we can't do this right now.
We can't have this conversation.
Yeah.
So then it really, it was demoralizing because it's yes, this whole situation is terrible. 2, you don't understand anything about how people are interacting with your brand. 3, your whole entire job is basically not important, and no one cares about what you do in your area of expertise, and they basically are completely confused about everything that you're doing. So what is the point of me being here then?
Yeah.
What is the point of that?
And it was a similar conversation that we had on some other topics of we didn't create co-streaming. People like this though, and it's a way that has become popular and ingrained in culture of how people consume this stuff.
Yeah.
We as Nintendo cannot take that
You don't have the power to take it away.
We did not create it. We cannot delete co-streaming. We cannot make co-streaming disappear.
Right.
So how much power do you think you actually have with all of this?
A lot. The amount of times in that discussion where we got asked about flipping the switch.
Yeah, the button. Just push the button.
Push the button to not allow this. I'm do you know? I don't know how else I can explain this to you. I really don't know how else. But that, literally, we would explain it, and they'd be well, can't you just switch it off? I'm no, there is no button. What is wrong with you? Oh my gosh, it's incredibly frustrating.
Let's teach the leadership team of Nintendo OBS in the 12 hours we have from midnight to 9 a.m. while the E3 Direct gets ready to go. That'll be fun for me. Let's do that.
The button, though.
So that was part 1 of this awful.
Yeah, you thought that was it?
Of this awful 24 hours.
There was even more.
So we finally make it to the Direct.
Yeah.
It's oh, thank God.
Thank God.
This thing's airing.
Yeah, people are co-streaming. It's fine.
And it's people will watch this. They're gonna love it. Hopefully they're gonna forget about this.
It's fine.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
So we're watching, and you and I are just chatting over IM, and you tell me that you were starting to get some strange chats coming through about this other project that you had been working on related to E3.
So again, this was like the digital only E3. So as part of this idea of like, let's make this feel a little bit bigger than just a normal run-of-the-mill Nintendo Direct. We still want people to get, excited about watching the Direct and have a sense of community, because we talked a lot about like, when you're at an E3, you get to feel that excitement from other people. And you kind of lose that when you're watching, just this thing online. You don't have that kind of community. So for all of the creators that were part of the Nintendo creator program that I was managing at the time, I was like, why don't we do like a fun little like Nintendo Direct watch party, kind of like just give them a couple of little fun tchotchkes that can make this feel a little bit more special. One of the main things we had in there was these like really cool Nintendo branded jackets that I think people still wear and love. Those are very cool. And I never got one, which is a little ironic and sad.
You could have made one for yourself.
I could have made one for myself.
It's your own fault.
It's my own fault. But like, we wanted to make it feel special for them, and we wanted to like, again, this is before all this co-streaming stuff happened, because we were trying to like encourage them to, co-stream it and feel the excitement of like an E3 level Nintendo Direct. And in this little like fun party mailer that we did, we had this little box that said "break in case of excitement." And
excuse you, it was extreme excitement.
I'm sorry. Break in case of extreme excitement. And inside was like
what is this stuff in here?
It's like party, like confetti.
What is this?
I think that's like a noisemaker, like a little clapper noisemaker.
All right.
But it's cute. It looked like broken glass,
Right.
And you could basically like shatter it.
Did you actually have to break it?
It was like you can just push on it, and it wasn't like dangerous or anything like that. But it was supposed to be funny.
Right.
Like, you're watching this Direct, you want that celebratory mood when your like favorite announcement, when your favorite game gets announced. We had a little letter that's like, oh, we're so excited for you to watch this, break this enclosed box to help you show how excited you were. We were hoping they would like use it on their streams, and like just, it was supposed to be fun, okay? Like, honestly, it was supposed to be fun.
But you also have this PS at the bottom.
Yeah.
Nothing in the enclosed box or this letter is a hint to the announcements on June 15th.
Right.
So, again, like sniffing out like people who are like, oh,
let's read too much into it.
It must be a Mario Party game because I got this party stuff. So,
exactly.
Kind of dispelling some of the common ways that people might interpret something.
Yeah, so we were already like thinking ahead about this and trying to make it, again, just for fun, but not like, don't read into it.
Right.
So I thought this was fun, okay? And who would have thought that I would get like a slew of the most like angry and disappointing emails and IMs from Japan that was basically like, we cannot believe that you did this. How dare you inflate the excitement? You are not managing people's expectations. This was very, very bad. I cannot believe that you sent this out to content creators, making them think there was like a big reveal in this Nintendo Direct. You should be ashamed of yourself. Tell us all the reasons why you did this and why it will never happen again. Like, it went on and on and on. Like, literally just... And this was as the Direct was happening.
You were getting those emails, which was just amazing.
I was like, and it was like getting really bad. Like, first it was just from,
More people kept like getting added to this.
Yes,
at first it was our boss, and then it was like the head of marketing, and then the people in Japan started coming in.
Right.
And I think it was because, some of these people had posted this.
Right.
And, there are people who are like looking for stuff nonstop, and they saw this like, oh no.
Yeah, you have inflated the expectations. You're not managing expectations. There was like some other stuff in this letter too that I think they didn't like. I'm trying to see if it's in there too, because there was something else about like you cannot, maybe it was like you show just how excited you are. You cannot ask them to be excited.
Can't force somebody to be excited. Get excited right now.
You can't like say that to them because they might think that you're trying to like gas them up to be excited about something
Being excited is a personal decision, Krysta.
I guess so.
You can't force that.
You can't force it. There was something about surprise maybe too, like in some other thing that became like that word became like never say that word ever again. Banned. You can never say surprise because then that means you're not surprising them. We were just like talking in circles at this point about how terrible it was that we did this and how stupid we were basically for doing this. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I had been up all night because you wanted to tweet about co-streaming. It was like 2 a.m. before I went to bed, 9 o'clock the next morning, just trying to watch this Nintendo Direct, and I got all these emails and IMs just telling me what a terrible person I was and what a failure I was, and I was like, that's it, I can't do this.
But it's hilarious because it was happening during the stream, and it was like, can anybody point to like where was the inflated expectation that happened as a result of this?
Yeah, there was nothing.
Or the people saying like, oh, this is going to be the biggest Direct ever because I got this. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
It was manufactured.
Right. None of that happened. It was just like, look what Nintendo sent me. How fun! Look at this cool jacket that I got. How cool! You know.
There's another very ironic detail to all of this, which is that this box and its content was actually approved by some of the very people sending you the email.
Yeah, I remember this because it was and again, our wonderful E3 lead was also part of this horrible discussion as the E3 lead.
As we were watching the Nintendo Direct.
And he was like, didn't they approve this? I'm like, yeah, you have it right there. Like, he has this like big document that had like all the different little things that we were doing to support the
Keeping
Direct.
track of all this, yeah.
And we literally had the approval, like, in the document. It was, like, approved. It was like, and we had the photos of all the stuff. We had the letter. All of it was approved, but then they decided to unapprove it, like, the morning of the Direct because they were, like...
It was the, but still corollary.
Yeah, but still, you're still stupid.
Yeah, you show the emails like, oh, well, you know, that person was reviewing a lot and they didn't get to look at the details. It's like, that's my problem?
Like, how is that my fault?
Don't say it's approved if you can't look at it.
Yeah, like, I followed the process.
Yeah.
Like, you guys looked at all this stuff. Like, it wasn't like I just did this by the seat of my pants, you know? Someone was in a bad mood. Again, mentally, the world was on edge.
And this happens, like, as you get deep into E3. We've talked about, like, being in the E3 war room. I think everybody was in their collective E3 war room, like, in their house, like, planning for E3 and watching this E3 of, like, everybody just starts to go a little cuckoo.
You do. Yeah. Maybe not being together made it worse.
And detached from reality of, like, what matters, what doesn't matter, what is actually happening.
Yeah. I do wonder if that is, you know, looking back on the situation and being far away from it now, I do wonder if it really was that. Like, we were so isolated, you know, during that time. And a lot of these people were, like, literally working out of a closet, quite literally. And I do wonder if they, like, went mad. Like, they just were so detached because you don't have anyone really around you to talk to like, bounce your insane ideas off of. You just went like bananas and made all these poor decisions. That could have been it, you know?
Yeah.
But it wasn't fun during that. So basically, I was done. I was so done. I was like,
you were furious.
I remember sitting in my house. I was in the middle of this Direct. I think it was like, the Direct wasn't even over yet. I closed that computer. I was like, no more. I'm not going to look at I don't care. I'm not going to respond to any of these messages anymore. I'm not going to respond to any more emails for the rest of the day. I basically I stopped. I could not anymore. So then we went to the beach, I think.
Yes, we were still chatting, and it was like, all right, well, this Direct is over, like, as far as our responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, like, you know, that thing with Mr. Sakamoto happens. Like, we don't really have anything else going on, so like let's go do something to blow off some steam.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'll meet you at the beach.
It was the only thing we could do. Like we
took a long walk on the beach and then just
times.
like raged on the beach.
But then we got like a coffee and we went to the beach and I didn't do anything else for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I literally did not even open my computer back up. And I think when I did, I just deleted all those messages. Yeah. I was like, I'm not engaging with this anymore. I'm not going to. Like
Did this conversation continue after the day ended? Like, were there more people like, no, I really need your explanation. Like, you really need to tell me.
I don't know because
apology.
I stopped answering.
Right. So it kind of amounted to.
It also amounted
a lot of nothing.
Like I did the thing that I think rarely is appropriate, which is I just did not respond. I just didn't respond. And I think that was the right approach.
Yeah.
Like, if I responded and tried to explain more...
This could go on forever.
I think it could have gone on longer,
Yeah.
and I think it maybe it could have just been like you're talking in circles.
Oh, yeah.
And then both people get frustrated, even
Right.
more so than we were already.
Yeah.
So it was one of those situations, just like, let's just go to our separate corners and just let it blow over.
Yeah.
Just like the co-streaming thing. It's just like, let's just buy the time
Right.
and let it blow over. And so I quite literally deleted every single email related to this. I did not engage in any more IMs. And when people were IMing about it, I just ignored them.
Yeah.
I just put them on like do not disturb. I was like, I'm not available to have this conversation with you ever again. So
yeah, I mean, we everybody has a bad day at work or things that don't go well or projects that don't go as you'd hope. But I think in this case, like these specific examples were extra frustrating because it was like, our knowledge and expertise in these jobs that we had in these fairly senior roles at the company were being completely discounted and disregarded. And you reach a point where you're like, okay, well, it's cool that I work at Nintendo, but like, what am I actually here to do?
Right.
If, I'm giving my insight and my expertise and my knowledge to people who are like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, that was really the big life lesson as we were reflecting on, when we were about to like leave Nintendo, we were
I mean, 6 months later, we were out the door.
Yeah.
Little did we know. We didn't know then.
It wasn't because of this
No.
singular experience, but this was one of many that made us realize like maybe we've gotten everything that we could have out of this experience of working at Nintendo. Like we had a great time at this company, so many years, so many like awesome projects that we were able to be a part of, but it was very clear that a lot of the things that were important to us, in that time and now, like wanting to, engage more with the Nintendo fans and the creators and wanting to do more creative work on social, wanting to like help Nintendo come into like the modern times. A lot of people were not truly interested in that. And that's okay. Like they can do their own thing. That's totally fair. They're very successful at doing that. But we kind of weren't interested in that, So you kind of come to a crossroads where you do come to the realization of like, maybe I don't have any more value to add here.
Yeah, you feel like you're not needed.
Yeah, and maybe we weren't needed anymore, and that's okay. Again, all of this is totally fine. It's like, well, if I'm not needed and I'm not getting any value out of this, then I shouldn't be here.
And some people think differently. It's like, all right, well, the scope of what I need to do is very narrow. I'm still at Nintendo, which is this cool place. I'm not pushing the envelope, but it's fine for me, and that's fine too.
Yeah, exactly. It's everybody's personal decision, but I think this was a really good example of, our own values when it comes to our careers and in life, our lives in general. Like you and I are both very similar. We always want to keep learning and keep doing like new, different things. And if we can't do that anymore, then we need to do something else.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was crazy. And I do blame the pandemic for some of the weirdness. And I think, again, we were just so fragile, like all of us, that we also may have, kind of internalized this in like a very like traumatic way because we were just mentally not okay at the time. I don't think any of us were. So this will stick out as like one of the things that was just like the worst day of your life.
Sure was.
Yeah, you're just like, wow, this is a bad day.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's move on to something happier, which is shouting out our sponsor, which is Notion. Thank you very much, Notion.
Thank you, Notion.
We are living in an era of information overload. We have more knowledge than ever before, but what do we do with it all? If you're in Notion, you put that knowledge to work. Notion is having a moment. We hear from different content creators,
use Notion.
People who do what we do. They're like, we use Notion and we love it because it helps us stay on top of all of the very complex things that we are doing.
Just the simple thing that they have, this Notion board that you can use to just collate all your ideas is really nice. Like it sounds really simple, but it's just a great way to keep track of all your creative ideas, all of the things that maybe you're inspired by. Like just having like a running Notion board is so nice. And I think it's great that they're able to just kind of collect everything in one place so that everybody on your team can find it. And also they can just like organize all of your thoughts, you know?
Right. And, we're just a 2-person business, and, we don't have an army of people in the other room. So, it is important for us to be very efficient.
Yes.
And make the most of our time. And Notion definitely helps make that possible. We're not spending time asking, like, well, where's this? Where's this document? Or like, oh, I thought you put that. I thought that was a spreadsheet, and I'm in the completely other things. Like, no, this is a great productivity tool that is helping us make the most of every single moment. And it's a place where everybody can write, plan, organize, and rediscover the joy of play.
Oh boy, that's what we do every day.
Being playful, putting these memes on this Notion board.
You gotta do it.
It's
very fun.
So, try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/Kit and Krysta. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/Kit and Krysta, and start turning ideas into action. And when you use our link, you are supporting our show. Notion.com/Kit and Krysta.
I'll put the link right over here and also in the description below.
Let's keep turning that frown upside down. We're going to bring in our good friend, Victor Lucas, and talk about everything he's been doing in his incredible career.
Well, we are here with the one and only Victor Lucas. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Krista. It was amazing to meet you at Summer Game Fest.
And
Kit, I've known for 500,000 years, it feels like.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had been a while since I had seen you last, probably, pre-pandemic. But yeah, you're somebody that I think I met very early in my career, which would have been like 2003, 2004.
Yes.
So it is amazing how, there are some people who have just remained permanents in the industry for such a long period of time.
It baffles me too. Because I'm a very busy person still doing what I've been doing for so long. I've had one email address essentially in my life, and I've just been covering games and talking to people that make really cool things for a very long time. And I talk about movies and other things too. But I feel very fortunate, and it's because I've had a lot of support from the video game community and the industry, and then, and viewers have supported my work for a very long time.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you because as we were, planning to do this, I was trying to think back of like, when did exactly Victor get started? And I realized I don't know. So I would love to hear that story.
Sure. I started the idea of EP, Electric Playground, in 1995. I was an actor before EP. And I was a waiter. I mean, that old, fallback. And I was kind of waiting for people to sort of notice my work and find a project that was going to get me sort of on my path. And I had some success very early on, but I quickly realized that I was going to be waiting. I was going to be waiting literally and waiting tables for a long time. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to kind of have some control over my destiny and my career. And I'd always loved video games. And I'd noticed this great big absence for any behind the scenes coverage of video games on television. And I wanted to know more. I collected every single magazine through the 80s and 90s, and I just devoured this stuff, and I bought tons and tons of games. I had a $300 a month habit of playing games across all the machines, and I thought there's got to be other people out there like me. Let me write down this idea for how I see a TV show coming together. And I started to meet with people across the video game industry. I went to the very first E3 and made lots of friendships and connections there. And I also started to connect with broadcasters and producers, and assembled a team, a small team, and then we did a demo and then a pilot, and then we got on the air in 1997, and it was self-syndicated, so a lot of local stations. In San Francisco, we were on the KBHK UPN affiliate. That's what we launched on there.
Love that one.
And, I used to watch it there.
Yeah, it's so wild. Yeah, and so we launched pre-G4, and we actually before G4 we were on the Discovery Science channel for 2 seasons. An interesting story with that network. We had a bunch of stations and networks in Canada too, but Discovery Science was ready to move forward with 3 of our shows in 2002. And 9/11 actually changed the whole course of all of that, because the planes hit across New York, but also in Washington D.C. And the general manager and people at the network got very the world's changed, lives changed. And so even though we had a verbal commitment to go to make 3 different shows, Reviews on the Run, and Electric Playground, and another show that I had pitched, we lost all of that because all of the leadership changed over there. But thankfully, G4 was there and they needed content. We started with our review show called Judgment Day with G4. And so, yeah, we were able to kind of spin off a segment from EP into its own show, which was called Judgment Day in America for a while, and Reviews on the Run in Canada. And eventually we went daily with Electric Playground and started to cover more of it basically it went from being an E3 every weekend to an Comic-Con every day. And that was crazy fun. I had teams all across North America, and we were visiting all kinds of companies and studios and events, and we've made thousands of episodes. We also turned reviews into a daily show as well, covering all of this incredible material. Work with the best people I've ever had the privilege to work with, but that also includes all the people across the community as well. Like, I love this industry and I love the people in it. And Kit, you're one of those guys. I've always thought you were just a really wonderful human being. Yeah, I don't work with them every day, Krista, so I don't know. I don't know.
He doesn't know my secrets.
No, but I always thought Kit was great. But yeah, I've been privileged to just be able to go off and talk and meet and be inspired by creative, collaborative individuals all over the world. And I'm incredibly grateful.
And when I met you, you were, properly big time. And I'm wondering, was there a moment, what was the moment leading up to that was like your big break? Like, was it when you got picked up by G4? Like, was there a specific moment that you can think back of, like, okay, now this is taking off?
Geez, man, I don't really know. Like, I think we all, like, I've always taken it very seriously. Even today, when I look at the type of content that I create, I endeavor to I work hard. I edit all the material. It's a much smaller infrastructure now. I don't have a team of people to build all this stuff, but I've always taken it with the same measure of responsibility. And I've never been one that's looked at numbers, like not the ratings, it never really was about that. It was about the work was the reward. And so I just took every partnership and every opportunity as a responsibility to just deliver, and, the one thing that definitely I was aware of when we went daily in Canada, which was our first sort of market that happened for us. We were working with Rogers, and they owned G4 Canada, so we were on G4 US and G4 Canada, and they also put us on their City TV network of stations across the country, which you can watch without cable. You can just watch those with rabbit ears. But they needed content that was going to be a little bit more broad-facing. It was a new thing for us to talk with, movie stars and comic book people and all these other different elements of entertainment as well as video games. And I was a little nervous because we had this routine of making video game stuff work for that audience. But suddenly we were entering into the sphere of Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood and TMZ, and we were on those time slots. We had 11 o'clock to midnight every night across Canada on all these major stations. But it worked. It worked right away. And the reason why it worked is because video games are incredible. And a lot of people don't know much about them. But if you show that footage to people, they're like, what? This is not Pac-Man. This looks incredible. Games are amazing. And then the other stuff that started to happen in 2008 when we went daily is the MCU was kicking off. And suddenly Marvel was the biggest brand in the world. And so, we're on set with, Spider-Man and Iron Man and all of these different movies and TV shows. We had relationships across all of these studios. Still do. And we just delivered all of it as this is vital entertainment information, and any consumer of entertainment is going to play games. They're going to watch these movies. But what happened for me personally is that I couldn't go shopping with my hat and my 3 days of stubble and sunglasses without getting recognized. And that hadn't happened before. And so it was, and people would they didn't know my name. And I'm totally cognizant of that. Most people don't know my name, but they would just, hey, it's video games. They would just look at me and say video game.
The video game guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird compliment, but it's a nice compliment to be a conduit to video games like that. But that was the one thing that I did notice. I never, I don't, I'm just grateful, man. I've never felt like, it's my time or I deserve this or whatever. I've just been grateful to have these moments and these opportunities. And I know how fleeting it all can be and how fragile it all is. And I just respect it. So I just try to do my best work that I can.
So starting in 95, you said, do you know of anybody who has been covering games for longer than you consecutively? Because I can think of a lot of people who were, doing it back then, but I don't think they're still doing it now. Like, are there still people that you still see at events? It's like, hey, we're still going.
Old hats, yeah. We've been in this game for a long time.
Jeff Keighley I've known, and Jeff Keighley actually, he was on EP, and he was in our pitch documents back in 95, 96, because he was writing for the paper in Toronto, because he's Canadian. And we sent him demo material, and he said, "Yeah, we need a show like this." And so we put his letter into our pitch kits that we would send to TV stations and networks. And he was at the very first E3, but he's pivoted. He's much more, I think, on the celebration model, the marketing model of the whole industry, and he's got this incredible position to kind of be this ambassador for games across a lot of interesting spheres. So he doesn't directly cover them. There's Jeff Gertzman, who was also at that first E3. There's a guy named Paul Semmel. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's been at, I think, at every one of these. There's a few others. And I don't know what that says about me, but I just really dig what I get to do. I feel it's a real privilege to have the opportunity. Now, I will say that when the shows were going off the air, and I knew that things were going to be a little tenuous when G4 was closing down in the States, we had a few more years of producing daily TV until 2015. And as the shows were winding down, that was a very, very hard time. I had to let go of a lot of incredible people, and we'd had this building momentum all the way along, and then suddenly we had to kind of face the reality that no, we had to wind this down and close this down, and I had to let people go, and shrunk, and I didn't know what I was going to do at the end of 2015, and I did start to think, okay, well, maybe this is my time to reach out to people that I know across the industry, and I did take a couple of meetings about possible opportunities. But one thing that happened is Ubisoft just sent me out an invitation to go and cover The Division in January of 2016. So we were winding up our television shows, and then they said, "You want to come down to San Francisco and play this new game that we've got coming out, and you can interview some of the developers?" And I went, "Yes, okay, let's go." I don't know what my future is going to be, but let me go down there. And I went down there with just me and my iPhone and my mic plugged into my phone. And I shot a couple of interviews and edited them together with iMovie and stuck it up on our YouTube channel. And it got, tens of thousands of views, and people were talking about my interview in a bunch of different places. I went, I guess this is what people do now. They don't need a TV show. They can just put it on the YouTubes and people will see this stuff. Well, let's do that. And then I just kept making videos, and I had a small team for a while. And then the pandemic really just did a number on that, did a number on visiting studios. And we were also doing mini documentaries and things like that were sort of augmenting our ability to bring income in to pay for team members. But all of that has kind of shifted and changed since the pandemic. We're slowly starting to, pivot back to some cool projects. I've done some really cool things, like I've hosted some cool events. I was able to host at Nintendo Live last year, which was an unbelievable honor. And then I've worked with Nintendo on some cinema spots and things like that, which have been really cool. So EP visiting Nintendo, talking about stuff, and they've been playing ahead of movies and things. All of that while I still make the regular amount of content that I have always made about games and movies and all kinds of stuff. It's a lot, though. It's a lot of juggling, especially after a thing like Summer Game Fest, where I'm finishing a 50-minute kind of special right now with all the interview bites, and it's a lot of work, but it is pretty good work.
Now, a lot of our viewers and listeners, some of them are not even alive in the 90s. And maybe can you share just like a few like thoughts of like what was the gaming industry like in the 90s? Like, are there any similarities? Obviously, there are a lot of differences.
Well, the one thing that I will say about, people can watch the 90s because I'm starting to upload all of our classic episodes on our YouTube channel once a week. We made 4,000 episodes of television.
Wow.
And I didn't want to just dump them all. I wanted to kind of celebrate them once a week. I didn't want that to be my full-time job either, was just like putting the whole archive up at once. So every week a half hour goes up, but they can watch it in real time. We premiere them on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock on our YouTube channel, and people can see the access that we had was very different. The energy that the studios had was very different. The teams were never that large, maybe 20 people at most when we're talking about the PS1 N64 era. And everybody was around the same age, and I've come up with lots and lots of people in the games industry that are about my age as well. And there was a sense around the industry that we were figuring it out. It was a maturing business because there had already been a lot of success with studios in the 80s. And 2D had built an infrastructure that people could kind of build off of. But with 3D games, there was a lot of scrapping all of that work and starting again, and learning this new language. And I think a lot of the 2D developers that had specialized in 2D had some struggles continuing with 3D. I think there were some people that left the industry. And so there was this kind of like new buck, like we're going to figure this out kind of attitude from everyone. And it was a lot of ambition and experimentation and throwing things at the wall to see what was going to be successful. And it was unbelievably exciting to be in these studios as these ideas were taking hold and these people were kind of figuring things out. And you could see the incremental learnings as you would go from studio to studio. They talk about something that came out 6 months ago or a year ago and how that influenced them on leveling up. The people that were making Pandemonium were influenced by the people by Nintendo. Everybody's influenced by Nintendo. But it was really cool to have that level of openness and that lack of pressure. Now I see and feel the concern of every developer that I encounter, how much they're worried about saying the wrong thing, how much they're worried about offending the fan base. And I put fan base in quotations because I think we've weaponized through social media people's ability to get caustic, and I know it's a tough needle to thread, but there's just so much venom out there, and it doesn't need to be that way. And I think when I look at EP, I see, that's underlined for me. It doesn't need to be that way. And I think that this is a societal thing, and we're all in this world, on these apps all the time. And they serve some great purpose, but they also, as we're all finding out, can be just a real, time suck and soul suck in our lives. And I think it's negatively impacted the video game industry in some pretty profound ways. And when I look at the joy on the faces of game makers that I used to see, I would love to see that come again. Of course, there are other concerns as well. I think there's a saturation in the marketplace, and the mobile industry and the free to play, play forever type experiences are all challenging for people to build and for people's time. It's a complicated business. I think that's the thing. In the 90s and 2000s, when EP was kind of building up, it was a lot more straightforward, and decisions were made on channel constriction and 3 or 4 different companies that were bringing these things to market, or allowing these things to come to market. And now it is the Wild West, and you see companies of every scale that make media of every kind. Like, how does a movie like Furiosa come out and just bomb, right? It's such a fragmented, crazy time for getting people to pay attention to you these days? That was a long rambling answer, but
no,
big
it was
question.
a really interesting answer, actually.
Well, I've been going back and watching a lot of the old episodes, and it's so true that they do have a very different feel to them. And I think, a lot of that comes down to those people were not endlessly media trained, and they were just really speaking from the heart in a lot of ways. And I think that maybe, goes back to, you must have had this great insight early on of going into a video oriented, your creation is video oriented, where at the time it was, print, online was, maybe just the first days of that. Like what made you want to focus on video? And like, I'm sure you hit a lot of roadblocks along the way of people just not seeing the vision for that. But of course now everything is video. So like what led you down that path?
Well, the necessity for it. I mean, I would have pretty frank discussions with broadcasters and sponsors, and I'd drop 13 magazines, and I'd say, these came out this month. You can't see the footage, And we started posting video in '95. At the very first E3, we were shooting interviews with Ed Boon and John Tobias and David Perry. The videos were this big, and they, you had to download them on your 28.8 modem or whatever. But we had them on there, and we could see that the internet and television definitely needed to play together, and that video was the way to reach everybody, and to show these games off. These were animated experiences, and they were like real time. I mean, what I did to pitch everybody was like, how Toy Story and Pixar, they're making these CG animated movies that are blowing us away with their imagination and where they can put the camera and all that. The video game industry is going to let you control the camera, and you're going to control the character. You're going to be the star and the director in your own interactive movies, and it's going to be amazing to think of these things as 3D entertainments. We should have a show that lets you see that work and lets you enjoy and appreciate that work. And I made it very straightforward. I mean, it was all personal too. And people have asked me to produce all kinds of other things along the way, and I just haven't felt it, And I think that is a big lesson that I could project out there, is like, it's really hard to get an idea off the ground, no matter how good it is. So you really got to believe in it, and you really need to express exactly what you want to see out of that idea. And if you have those two down, and you can get people to see what you're thinking in a clear way, then you can kind of bring more people to your party. And it takes a bunch of people to build that stuff. So you need to be collaborative and appreciative and respectful. But yeah, you need to have that real passion. And I have a real thought about esports and why that has struggled. And I think a lot of people jumped onto esports as some big money grab. And there hasn't been, I know this is generalization, but you really need to believe it, And if you're going to have any kind of longevity in media or creativity, believe it. Don't just come at it because you want to be successful or you want to be famous or you got to believe it, because you're going to end up having to be the evangelist for this thing, and everybody's going to want to come back and ask you how this is all possible. But I think the biggest barrier to entry, though, Kit, to answer your question, was the economic sort of challenges. Like we spent $40,000 on a piece of crap Avid to edit our first season. and we couldn't. Our first PC for Electric Playground was $10,000, so that it could run games and run Photoshop and all that stuff. And $40,000 for a terrible Avid, and so we had to go to another studio and rent space on another Avid that could actually output the show at a resolution that would be ready for television. All of that cost money. We were the first production company to make an HD TV series about video games. I spent $75,000 on a deck, on a Sony HD Cam deck, that we could record our gameplay footage out of an Xbox 360 or whatever at 720p, and it would upconvert to 1080p because we had to buy external things that would upconvert everything. And the tapes were $200 each for an hour, and so people, it isn't just the impetus for the idea, it is all of the costs, and then also the idea that it was all physical, and so we had to ship games, we had to ship tapes. We had to, and sometimes there'd be a screw up on an episode, and we'd have to fly somebody with a physical tape to a studio or a broadcaster, and they'd have to rush that tape to the location and plug it into it was all analog, and that was the difficulty. And that's what I'm proudest of, is that our team figured it out. We just kind of rode this wave and figured out every one of these technical and expensive challenges, and held it together, and grew and built all this content. And we're able to. I honestly, I think we made the coolest show ever. I know that's not very.
You did.
Yeah. But I'm just like, I look at it, I'm like, how did we do this? And I know it's very different now, because I just bought one of these Osmo Pocket 3s, and I took it to Summer Game Fest, and I shot all my interviews. Yeah, they're amazing.
Really cool. Yeah, I was just going to say, now it's so much easier, right? To do.
It's insane.
This level of production, it's like just in your pocket. It's like a little phone, but incredible.
And it's the best camera that I've ever had. And it's $1,000 with microphones and the whole thing. It's like, what the heck happened? And so, I think people today that build content, I think they think, okay, it's cool that you have a TV show, but they equate it to the same thing as making something on YouTube. And it's not, Now, people that are making TV today that are not using the technologies that are readily available to them for content creators are also dumb as hell, because the economies have changed, and you can save a lot of money by not, overspending on studio space and gear and all kinds of things. And that's the other thing too. Like, we're based out of Canada, and so we've never had huge budgets to build all the stuff, and that made us very like G4 and Discovery Science were impressed by our ability to stretch a buck, and we just did. We figured it out, and I'm super proud of that. I'm super proud that because I would go to E3 and we'd have our 6 people or whatever, which would equate to 3 teams running around and collecting all of these interviews, 2 people per team. And I'd see the occasional AMC show or a Spike show or whatever, and there would be 10 people around the camera and the interviewer, and they would be getting the same content that we were, but they were spending 5 times as much or 10 times as much money just on infrastructure and manpower. And those shows would never last, because the budget would be too high, and people would sort of look at the numbers and they'd figure it out. But we persevered.
I got to say, I had an out-of-body experience when you mentioned HD cam, because I was also there through that transition, and that was terrible. weird transition moment for that. I want to change the focus to Nintendo and ask, when did you first get noticed by Nintendo? When did you start getting invited to Nintendo stuff, getting Nintendo games, and how did that happen?
Oh, that happened almost right away, actually. Nintendo's been a partner of Electric Playground right from the very beginning, right from our very first seasons. One of the cool things is that Nintendo of Canada is based in our city, and there aren't other Electronic Arts is here, but they're the development arm of EA. And other development studios are in Vancouver, but there hasn't been a real publisher or marketing division set up in Vancouver. And actually, Nintendo of America was almost set up in Vancouver back in the day. And there's some really great connections that stretch back all the way along. And that Seattle-Vancouver connection was really important, because the cities aren't very far apart. But right from I got to say 1996 or definitely by 1997, I was visiting Nintendo of America on a regular basis and got to know a lot of the squad that was there. Alan Bullardinelli and Ken Lobb, was interviewing those folks all the time. And I remember, Nintendo is such a massive part of my personal history and Electric Playground's history. But I remember going to these events, and there would be a lot of traditional magazine journalists, and they were starting their websites and stuff like that. But we'd be there with a big broadcast camera, because that was the other thing. These cameras weighed a ton, and they'd be on people's backs. And I was such an eager beaver. I'd have like half-an-hour conversations, and the cameraman, I could hear them going, "Oh, is this almost over?" I had so many times I could hear them sighing in the back. "Shut up, dude!" But I was so happy to talk with these people. But I remember. We were there with a big broadcast camera, and Peter Main wanted to talk with us because we're the TV show about video games that is there. And I heard Frank O'Connor, who was running one of the magazines, eventually ended up on creative at Halo. But I heard him. Can I swear on this?
No.
Okay, I won't swear. Well, I'll say that he swore. He said, "Who the blank is that guy?" And it's Scottish brogue. And I'm like, about to ask a question, or who the blank are those guys? Just the venom, man. I was like, oh my God. But I kind of get it, because people kind of rolled out the carpet. We were the very unique brand out there that was covering things for television, and we had great access, and people, I think, really it was, not, they wanted their games to get seen and stuff, but they wanted a show like ours to also kind of work and get seen and shine a light, because I think that there was a great awareness that we needed to reach people that aren't playing games. We needed to reach people that have a casual kind of connection to this stuff. That's been Nintendo's philosophy right from the very beginning. They really had this understanding that their work, their games, their products are all inclusive, and let's bring people to this thing. And even if you have these, at the time, early 90s or 80s apprehensions about what video games are, they're for the whole family, and they can be super, super fun. And that definitely correlated with the vision for Electric Playground. And so did Sony's and Xbox's investments into these, state-of-the-art products, these things that were just mind-blowing to witness. And it, became a running gag for me. I'd be on the news on a regular basis. People would want to talk to me about video games or whatever, and they'd finish the segment, and then the anchors would always say, "Well, we've come a long way from Pac-Man. That's not Space Invaders." And I would hear that every single time. And it's like, no, it's not Space Invaders. Open your eyes, people.
You mentioned Nintendo of Canada, and we actually get a lot of questions about Nintendo of Canada because people know it exists, but people don't know much more than that. And obviously, you've been working with them forever. Like, from your perspective, like what should people know about NOCO?
Well, Nintendo of Canada is responsible for reaching to all the Canadian players out there. And so they work as a conduit to Japanese development or North American development. There is a Next Level Games, which is owned by Nintendo, is based in Vancouver as well. And so they would be a part of the conversation for anyone that would want to have access to those developers, and they don't always, want to give up access to developers, as you guys know. Oftentimes it's sort of the spokespeople from Nintendo that are approved. So they have some of those folks in there. But Nintendo of Canada puts on events, and they organize their own marketing. A lot of the Nintendo spots actually are produced out of Vancouver. And they're a part of that, like the Switch debut video, that famous Switch debut video, which we've all used in our YouTube clips.
Rooftop.
Yeah, that's all based in Vancouver.
Was a Vancouver rooftop. Yes, absolutely.
Vancouver is amazing for production. Like the amount of support work and experience that's in this town. Plus the city is, I've used it to death with our reviews on the run. Yeah, you guys have been up here. It's beautiful. And it's also really diverse, mountains and oceans and it rains a lot. And I've had to call a few shoots in the rain sometimes, but there's lots of really awesome backgrounds up here. And so Nintendo is, they're in the mix with all of that. I've done deals with them to host stuff. I've done deals with them to And what they do is that I'll work with them, and then they'll connect me with NOA people as well, like JC. I might interview JC or something. For Nintendo Live last year, I worked through Nintendo Canada and the PR agencies that are in Nintendo, and then they connected me with Nintendo of America directly, and there were outside directors and stuff as well that came in, and producers. And so they're very much aligned with Nintendo of America's kind of messaging and marketing, but they also have their own initiatives and projects. A lot of the French stuff obviously is going to be spearheaded from Nintendo of Canada. And I think really what's happened over these last 30 years is there's just way more international communication and figuring out different types of events. One thing that Nintendo really did a great job with, Nintendo Canada, was the Switch launch event in Toronto in 2017 was awesome. It was like a mini E3 just around the Switch, and they had all of these stations that you could go and play, the like really cool backdrops and sets, and everybody from Toronto media was there, and it was an awesome event, and it really solidified how special. Isn't the Switch just like the manifestation of a dream? As longtime Nintendo fans, right? Like they just killed it with this machine, but we didn't know that. We didn't know that was going to happen in 2017, and then they had this event, and it was like, oh my god, this thing is incredible, and they really nailed it. Yeah, they're such a special company. I love working with them, and not just because they've been believers and supporters in EP right from the beginning, but just I love their games. My co-host would make big fun of me about how much of a Nintendo fanboy I am. What can I say? I love what I love.
How did the Nintendo Live stuff come about? Because we were at that event, and we'd actually had a chance to go to one of the previous events in Japan.
Yeah.
Like, you're such a perfect fit for hosting it, but I'm wondering, like, at what point did they approach you? Just how was all of that?
Honestly, they had a conversation behind the scenes that maybe Victor would be a fit, or maybe he would work, and they reached out, and I went, "Oh my God, yes, I would love to do that. That sounds incredible." Easy, yes. Yeah, easy yes. And I had no idea that the event was free. Like I thought it was, like people had to pay to come. I that was such a special thing, and to see the joy on people's faces, like what a gift that whole experience was. The music was incredible. It was just an honor. Part of it, I think, comes from they've used me in some commercial spots and stuff, and it's I always talk with them. It's like people know me from EP, they don't know me as Nintendo actor guy, and so let's pull this together so it's Electric Playground and me asking these questions, which I have no problem with. But let me have a pass through all of the editorial, and let's make sure that everybody is getting the way that this is hosted on the same page. But let's do it as if it's Electric Playground, and so it's a sponsor of EP essentially, and I'm hosting that stuff. But that's always been the role that I have. I've always been this kind of avatar that helps to bring people into this world, and we've had a lot of success with that. Over the years through EP and through the cinema things that we've done together and some of the commercial stuff. I also love. One of the cool things is Nintendo's worked with us to cover the, and I really want these to come back, the video game launch events, like the midnight launch events and things like that. And I love talking with players that are just jumping up and down and are so excited to get their hands on games. It's such an honor to be in that spot, and to see that joy, and to I don't know. I love it. And I feel like more software needs that time, not just Nintendo stuff. These companies work so bloody hard to build these things, these products that make our lives better, they really do. I think we are in such a, dismissive world these days, and we're always thinking about what's next and what's new and what thing is going to capture our imagination for a second before we move on to our next second. But companies work and work and work and work, and then they finally ship these things, And I think they should be celebrated more, Clearly, I mean, I'm still doing that with the work that I do, but I loved those. And I know physical is changing and all that. I love that Nintendo came out right up in front of Switch 2 launching and said, yeah, we're going with cartridges and we're sticking with physical. I thought that was a great flag in the ground. I think there's something just so innately important about people being in a physical space to show their combined excitement for things. It's just a great visual. It's a great story. And Nintendo gets that.
Yeah, totally.
So you've worked with Nintendo for close to 30 years. We've seen in the videos you've had a chance to meet like every developer, get this amazing insight into what they're doing. Like, do you have just a cool Nintendo story that you can share with us today?
Yeah, I mean, meeting
Big or
Shigeru
small,
Miyamoto
whatever.
Let's start with the biggest. Miyamoto was a hero already. He was a legend in '95. I think I just met him at a Nintendo. I didn't shoot anything there, but because we had one broadcast camera for one day, and so we shot all the interviews that we had. But I went to a Nintendo press conference, and I had to get up there and shake his hand and just tell him I loved him. And John Riccardi, I don't know if you guys know John Riccardi. He runs 8-4 in Japan. Mm-hmm. He said, dude, I like your hustle, because he was writing for EGM. And I went, it was Miyamoto, man. I wanted to go and say hello. And so he was super nice. And then I think the one that we ran in our first episode, I think that's 97, because that was Star Fox 64. So that was E3 97. And being able to interview him and have all of these cameras and all of these people around us, and the pictures are going off. And he was just so charming and awesome. And I was asking, basically, are you a rock star? I kept asking him, like, how famous are you? And how, because to me, he's like royalty, right? And in that time, I think the myth of Miyamoto was still being constructed. It was still being built a little bit. So he was very, not shy, but he was definitely not like, I'm not, who am I? I just make video games. He gave that off. But I was just enamored to meet him. But I'll tell you, we did an interview with the Splatoon team, and it's on our YouTube channel. And meeting those guys and getting into the insight on that was I'd always kind of overtly known this, but to hear this from team members over there that really kind of underlined that Nintendo's philosophy is always play first and always prototyping and just having fun, and hearing the whole story of how Splatoon was, a series of happy accidents, and it was based off of the squid ink and having all of this liquid on screen, and it just took them a while to kind of find the game and the story out of all of that. It was so unbelievably illuminating. And it really gave me a real perspective of the Nintendo difference and the way that they love their storytelling and their characters clearly, but those come after the play, after the fun, and they just play and play and play until they know they've got fun mechanics, and then they wrap all of the trappings around it. And I have to be honest, like I've said this on camera, like when I saw the first Splatoon, I was like, I don't know, like I'm a big shooter fan. I like all kind. I got Call of Duty and Halo, and like that's for kids. I don't know if I'm gonna get into Splatoon. And of course, it's incredible. And so I was so excited to talk with them about Splatoon 2, which was also, and so was Splatoon 3. But it's because the play is effortless, and it feels like that from every part of the company, so it definitely is about I'm so inspired by people that get out of bed every day to try to put joy out into the world, like they work their butts off. And that's why I can't stand the hate that game makers receive online. I think it's so unwarranted. And certainly there are some promises that aren't made and disappointments about the state of games as they ship and microtransactions. There's a bunch of things that the industry is working through. It's funny that we went to DLC and microtransactions being a back of the box to no DLC, no microtransactions. Is now a back of the
It's true.
Back of the box. We keep learning some pretty incredible lessons, but I really cannot handle how much knee jerk hatred is out there, because I know that these folks, these people, and certainly there are some power abusers and some jerks and stuff out there. But for the most part, these people, all of these creative people, they're just eager and happy and delighted and want to, put their best ideas into something. And like I've been doing this so long, and I'm sure you guys have these moments too, where it's like, am I doing the right thing? Should I put all of my day's energy into this work? And do I really, want to keep contributing to this? And then I think, well, these are the things that add light into the world, whether it's, a huge blockbuster movie or an amazing video game or a comic book that everybody's talking about or whatever, these are the things that make life. They make
fun.
It fun. Yeah.
What are we doing?
What are we here to do? Right. Yeah. Are we just here to work and make money and pay bills? Is that it? And no, we're here to, we got to do that. We got to make money. We got to pay the bills.
That too.
Which sucks. But we want to have fun. We're here to have fun in our limited time on this planet. And it's these joyful things that let us do that, And I am so respectful of, because they don't know. Like, it's the height of optimism. They don't know if these things are going to work, even from one iteration to a sequel. They just don't know, And you can have the biggest team and the biggest brands and the biggest license and the biggest expectation, and it doesn't work. But those people don't know. They tried. And that's so cool, It's so cool. Like, I bring it back to the Furiosa movie. Like, look at that talent. Look at all of that incredible work. And then it's like, nah, we don't want it, But I love that they try.
Last thing we want to ask you about is your big push, as we've been talking about, of re-releasing all of your old content and getting it out there. And I think it's so cool because, like we were talking about, like, people can get this glimpse into what things were like back then and how games were made and how games were covered, and just a look into the culture of the 90s that, again, people just may not have. And I think on the flip side, like, we're a little bit jealous because we have an old thing that we did that we don't own the rights to. So I think there are things we'd like to do, but we can't. So, but, we just really are very, we have a lot of admiration for you doing that, but would love to know, like, what was your moment of like, yeah, I should do this?
I've been trying to do this for a while, and I've been looking for partners for a while because honestly, I've had the archive. It's come along with us no matter where we've been set up. And since the pandemic happened, we had to kind of scale everything down. So I had all of these tapes in my garage, and there's a lot of footage. It was 100 boxes of tapes. And I was looking for, a sponsor. I never really had any sit downs with investors or whatever. I started talking with different people that I know across the industry. Would this be something that you think your brand would want to associate with if we started to post all of this stuff? I had some cursory conversations with broadcasters, but what's happened a lot in the broadcasting community since G4 has passed on, again, there's just a real gun shy kind of feeling around any of this. There's just a real hesitation to spend. I mean, broadcast is going through like every media right now, no matter where you're putting your material, is tumultuous, to say the least. And so there's a lot of kind of like hesitation to like really invest in it, especially if you're the only one. And we really are. We're the only group in the world that has been doing, in the whole planet. I had this realization, like, I am the only person on Earth that has been doing what I've been doing for this long on planet Earth. And it just blows me away. I had that was not the dream. Like just getting it off the ground was the dream. But I had all of this material, and I was looking for a partner. And then what happened is Scott Jones was working with who is a former host of Electric Playground and my great friend. He's an awesome guy. Worked on Reviews on the Run as well. He was working with the widow of Sid Bolton, And Sid Bolton was Canada's largest collector of video games and memorabilia and PCs. And he had this museum in Ontario, and he sadly passed away a few years ago. And so he was helping Sid's widow to try to find a home for the collection. And he did eventually find the University of Toronto, Mississauga, who was building up a game studies program at the university, a perfect fit for this collection of physical media and all, this true history of the industry. And Sid's collection is unbelievable. And so Scott started talking with those folks over there. And then I brought it up with Scott. I said, do you think the university would be interested in our media archive and working with us to digitize this? And can we find a way? Maybe they want to sponsor it, and we'll do all of that work here. And so I started talking with those folks over there. Chris Young, who heads the library at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, terrific guy, huge fan of video games, immediately saw that this is a perfect fit. But the practicality of how to do it, we had to kind of work out. And so what we eventually figured out is he'd come to Vancouver, and he and I boxed every tape and put them all into a thing, and they organized the shipping of all the material. I thought it would be easier for us to manage it and do it here, but he said he wanted to have the collection on site at their library, and the way that their funding worked, it made more sense for them to do it there. But long story short, I found a partner that was going to be able to ingest all of this material, and every one of these physical tapes is a real-time, proposition. So every half hour is a half hour. And so we had 4,000 episodes of shows, and we had hundreds of other, maybe thousands of other tapes of all the full interviews. And we would shoot half-hour interviews and then cut down to 3 minutes in a show. And so that the value is in the shows, but I think the real extended value is when we start digitizing all of the raw footage and start digging into that. And so it was going to be a process with this school, and it's going to be a long-term process of them digitizing everything, sharing it with their students. They have an educational license, but I own all of the content. Our company owns all the content. And so they're just sending me the footage as they're digitizing it. They're backing it up over there, and they have a environmentally sealed area to store all of that physical media, and they've got that all on hand. And we've got this ongoing relationship that hopefully will develop into lots of other cool ways to partner. And then the other thing that I saw the opportunity for was a partner to sponsor this content as we went forward with it. And I reached out to some retro game companies, or retro game retailers. And the first conversation I had was with P&P Games, and Lee over there, who kind of runs their marketing and does all that. We just hit it off right away. He's like a brother from another mother, and he totally understood. He was a fan of the show, and he said, yeah, we could do something cool. Because I wanted to inject spots into the show that kind of felt like they were from the era, and they would evolve as we went along. And he went, oh my God, that's going to be super fun. And they've gone crazy with their spots. They've been an incredible partner. They're so wacky. And it's just been really fun to look at this stuff again and re-experience it again, and read people's comments, either in the comments after they've seen it, or live in real time as they're premiering. And I found two perfect partners. I'm still looking for another sponsor or two that wants to come aboard, but I am so freaking busy just building things that I'm not in pitch mode, and it's a funny, you guys know, when you're making media, it's hard to be pitching media, because making media takes all your time. But I would love a couple more partners that see the opportunity there, that are a fit. I don't want to just throw any brand or any company in there. But I think this stuff is valuable. And it's really fun to re-experience. Of course, I'm partial, I'm attached to all of it, and I'm proud as hell of all the people that contributed. But it was pure, man. It was pure heart stuff. Like we went out there. There was no ulterior thing. I wasn't an established producer that wanted to make a quick buck out of the video game industry. It was all just like, how do you do this? Who are you? Why do you work here? Like really core, powerful questions about this kind of the creativity and this activity, and presenting it for the first time to people, and a lot of times the people we had on camera, that was their first time ever being in front of the camera. And I'm just acutely aware of all those responsibilities that we had, and that we didn't take it lightly, and I'm proud of it. So I'm just happy that we exist in a world where that, regardless of the gatekeepers that exist at broadcasters and other partners that would have held a project like this back, or we would have to convince them to spend money to get this. We don't need that now. We can just get it out there. And it's pretty cool that we have these vehicles, these platforms. There are some good things about this social media kind of sphere that we're in right now, for sure.
Amazing on so many levels that, you still had these tapes. They had not degraded to the point of being unusable, that you found these partners. And most of all, this is another point where you were really ahead of things, owning your own content. Back then, I can't imagine too many other things that were in that situation. So, I mean, we're all the benefactors of that we can now watch this stuff and really learn and enjoy it, which is amazing.
Yeah, and it's certainly a very significant part of video game history. I think people think video game history is old consoles and things like that. But it's really the context, those conversations that you have with those people at the time of the things coming out. That is video game history. So
the people.
The people, and their stories and their motivations and their inspirations, that is what makes this whole thing special and interesting. So just to have
and I think
there is amazing.
One of the things with YouTube is it's such a product focused medium. It's such a, let's reflect on this product. You should buy this product. Let's review this product. And there are lots of interviews and things we're doing this right now, but I don't know. I think we're training generations of people to just not think of the human beings behind a lot of this stuff, and maybe that's leading to the rampant negativity that's out there. And I don't know. I mean, that's what our show was. It was, and that was the difference too. A lot of shows about games sort of came and went that were just product focused. It was hosts on stage just giving their opinion or reading a script on a prompter about a product, and that's all it was. And our stuff was not that. And because we spent all the money that we had every season to go out there, I think it's made it. I mean, that's how we lasted for as long as we did. We were on TV for 20 years, and I think the reason why was we went to where everybody was. And I don't want the world to forget that. I feel like humans are more interesting than products. That story of inspiration to build this stuff is more meaningful and more powerful and more inspiring than just the thing. The things are great, but the drive to make it, that's really great.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so amazing catching up with you, and I'm so glad we caught up at Summer Game Fest and can make this happen, because you just have so many incredible stories and have done such amazing work, over the decades. If people want to, check you out or check out your work, where should they go to do that?
Thank you so much. That's very kind. I'm sorry for dominating the conversation. I'm a long-winded guy when I get asked.
Here to learn from you.
Here to learn, yes.
But it's been really wonderful to be on your show, and people should know that you will be on my podcast on Vic's Basement. But you can watch all of our content, the classic stuff, and all the new things that I'm always working on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/EPNTV. And just search Electric Playground. You'll see us on TikTok, and I post stuff to Instagram, and I'm on Twitter and Threads, and I'm on a million different platforms. All the things, yeah.
All the things. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. We have to have you back because I think you have more stories.
More stories.
That you're keeping,
oh yeah, anytime, you guys. I'd love it.
Yeah.
I'd love it.
Thank you again. This is great.
Thank you.
And we're back.
I was going to say, I'm so ready this time.
No,
but
you never are.
Truly not.
Love Victor.
Oh
so
my
glad
gosh.
he is still around. We might need to have him back.
We do.
He's got too much in his head.
Too many stories and secrets. But yes, it was so nice. I was really amazed that his first impression of you is so different than my first impression of you.
Well, it is true. Like, I'm very comfortable talking games with people, talking with like-minded people. So, like, I definitely am an introvert, and I feel that more so in different settings.
That's true.
But being being able to share like that passion with other people, like that's a piece
easy.
of cake. That's a piece of cake. So that made, meeting him and all those other people early in my career, no problem at all.
You guys should definitely watch the old Electric Playground episodes, though.
Those are really cool.
The '90s vibe, because it's so cool.
I watched one recently where he went to. It was from like mid to late '90s. He went to Namco's like arcade warehouse, and it was like, here's how we maintain all these arcade machines. And it's like, wow, this whole part of gaming is like kind of gone.
It's kind of gone, yeah.
But I'm interested in it, and now I can actually see it.
Yeah, truly video game history captured.
Yeah. All right, we have a bunch of questions from our Patreon community, and we get each and every question every episode from our Patreon community. Look us up at patreon.com/Kit and Krysta. We have exclusive content.
Oh, yeah.
We have early access on stuff like this podcast. We have an incredible Discord community. Mm-hmm. Check us out, please.
It's good stuff, people.
Yes. We'll start with a question from Frulio. During the Wii era, what were some of the most outrageous complaints you received from people with Wii Remote-related accidents? And how did you respond? You were on the receiving end of a lot of weird phone calls for a while.
I was. When I started at Nintendo, it was sort of in the, it was 1 year after the Wii had come out, so we were still very much in that like Wii height at Nintendo. I don't know if we got a lot of complaints. Like, I personally didn't get a lot of complaints about, like, oops, I threw my Wii remote into the television, which you heard about so much in the media. But I would get so many phone calls, and I was in charge of this like really weird thing that may surprise some of you, but I was in charge of this thing where if you couldn't find a Wii and you really, really wanted one, and you had some kind of special circumstance, the department that I was in, the comms team, we had like a very small secret room filled with Wiis.
Really?
It was like 50.
That's a lot of Wiis.
It was a lot of Wiis if you couldn't get a Wii, which you couldn't get a Wii at
so
the
what
time.
was it? It was like, it's Timmy's birthday? Like, what was the circumstance that would get you this?
It was like...
What was the cutoff for this?
So they would, basically, the customer service team at Nintendo would get these phone calls, and they would probably hear some kind of story where it's like, I gotta get a Wii because of XYZ. And sometimes they were like legit, like, I'm producing a TV show, and we really need a Wii for the set. Like, okay, if you're producing like a really great TV show, we want that visibility, sure, we'll get you a Wii. But we did get a lot of like personal requests, and some of them were like really, really sad. It's like,
I'll bet.
I'm gonna pass away, from a terminal illness. And I need to have this thing before I pass away. It's like, okay, well then we gotta get you this Wii. Or there was like crazy stuff too. I would get like crazy phone calls from people, like, we need 100 Wiis for the school PTA to raise money for the gym.
It's a lot of Wiis.
Or like, oh, we are a non-profit organization. We would love a donation. Or we want to do a giveaway. We can buy the Wiis from you to donate, but we just can't find them in stores. Can you help us? So we got a lot of those too. I got one was a frantic mother that was like, I have to get this for my kids for Christmas. I need them to love me. Please help me. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And so I would
This is where you said, just like being excited, loving somebody is a choice, and you can't force that through a week.
You can't buy love.
Yes.
Haven't you watched that movie?
I'm going to connect you to somebody in Japan. They're going to explain this to you.
And they're going to explain co-streaming. Oh wait, they don't know what that is. And I had this like spreadsheet that was basically like wheeze out and wheeze in kind of, where it was like, who got it, why, the reasoning. And I did have to get it approved. Like, I wasn't the one making the decision. I would, like, send it on.
You're not playing God.
No, I was trying to just do my job. And I had to ship them out, too, so I would do, like, all the shipping for it. And they would come from, like, the North Bend where they had all those products come out.
In the warehouse.
In the warehouse, yeah. And yeah, that was, like, a pretty, like, significant part of my job in the early days of me starting at Nintendo, because a lot of people wanted Wiis.
Yeah.
And I heard a lot of crazy stories. I tried to help as many people as I could. I felt bad for them, you know. Some of them had like really sad stories. Some of them had really ridiculous stories. Yeah. But I was the one that was like kind of fielding those requests, and it was wild.
Well, where are you? Oh, Green Bay, Wisconsin? I don't really like the Packers. I don't think we have a we at the moment. Click.
Oh, no.
So this must have been something that ran its course by the time I joined, because I don't remember anything about this.
By the time you joined like 2 years later, I think Wii was okay it was like in stock at that point.
You know, the Switch has greatly outsold the Wii now, and, you know, will be the greatest selling console ever.
Yeah.
But that first like year or so of the Wii, the mania, the hysteria. Cannot be matched.
No. And just like the crazy, you know, like we all talk about seniors bowling, but just the sheer amount of new people that came to video games because of the Wii really was represented in a lot of those requests that I got. I don't think we've ever gotten so many requests for like using the Wii to do certain things. Like, we want to use the Wii to teach a course in college. Can you get me a Wii? We want to use a Wii to rehabilitate people in a doctor's office. Can you get me a Wii? Like, so many requests that were just so wildly outside of the realm of video games really reflects back, like, how broad the appeal of that system was.
We got a next question. I should say, these questions, again, since this is a vacation episode, I went to the other end of our archive of questions.
Oh?
A lot of these questions are from, like, 2022.
Okay. That's
Still
fine.
for people who are active Patreon subscribers, though.
I know.
So thank you for being with us.
Yeah.
Paul Gale has the next question. Hi, you two. If you ever expanded into becoming a video game publisher, what type of title would you like to develop first under your brand? It could be your own intellectual property or something licensed that you got to be able to work with.
Well, we already published a game. It's called Krista's Big Decision.
I wouldn't call that publishing.
We published it.
You know, we did talk to some people who are in, like, you know, do self-publishing or co-publishing with indie developers.
Yeah.
And we did have, like, an honest conversation with them of, like, what does that entail? Like, what do you have to do to, like, judge, like, if we ever wanted to do that?
Yeah.
Like, could we? Are we in a position to do that? And we learned that we're not.
No.
is what we learned.
Yeah. And maybe just a thing that we don't want to dip into.
Right.
Yeah, maybe one day in the far-flung future.
Yeah, maybe one day, but not at the moment.
Yeah, being a video game publisher is super, super hard and a lot of risk as well. Like, it just is not a predictable business model, which makes it really, really challenging to, like, put your resources in. But in the imaginary world of if we were to publish a game, what game would it be?
Well, so we do work with indie developers, you know, sharing marketing. We do consulting for these developers on consulting. And again, since it's just two of us, like, we are choosy about the people that we work with, and that's one of the great things about it. Is like we can pick, like, this. We think this game is promising.
Yeah.
This game is something. Really like this game is something that we would want to play.
Yes.
So I think we would look at it through the same lens of just like what is a cool game that, you know, we would want to bring to the world and help make it, you know, help it find an audience. So I don't think I have like, oh well, it needs to be this game, it needs to be that game. It's like I just want to just find something cool that needs to get. That we can help get out there. Yeah,
I do. I think that's definitely how I look at it too. But one thing that I would love to, like, have as part of our, like, if we did have like a publishing arm, is like I would really prioritize games with co-op because we are two people, and we always look for those like really unique co-op games. Like, I still think about that game, that Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time or whatever.
I thought you were going to say Putty Pals.
Oh, I like Putty Pals, and
I never said I didn't.
Like it.
I never said anything about Putty Pals.
We had this one thing where we basically were supposed to be suggesting games for each other to play. Right. And I gave you the great game of Putty Pals, and you spit on Putty Pals.
I 100%ed it. What do you mean?
You made fun of it. I would never. You archived it immediately.
How dare you? No, you're wrong.
Anyways, but I feel like we always are looking for unique co-op games. So if someone has like a really interesting co-op experience, I would be so interested in that.
Yeah.
Not just your typical like players do players, but like a really interesting co-op experience would be a fun game to co-publish.
Tech Magic has the next question. Do you or have you ever watched any Nintendo reaction channels, co-streaming?
Oh, co-streaming.
In your free time? If so, who are some of your favorite reactors? What are some of the best things they have reacted to?
My favorite person is Roger's Base.
He's
my favorite.
He's elite. He's an elite reactor.
Oh my gosh. And the thing with Roger is that he is always like at a 12. But people say that he's like putting on a show, but that's like actually his personality.
So that's the thing. That's the thing with the reactions is like I do feel there's a lot of people who are playing it up because
They're
it's like
acting.
Because it's like this is what people want to see.
Right. They want to
see the big
off.
reaction. I would be great to post this clip on TikTok and have it go viral because I had this OMG reaction.
Yeah.
But yeah, with him, like we know him well enough to say like that's his
actual true personality.
So when he is actually excited, like I know he is legit excited, so I can get excited about that too. It's not somebody who's trying to manufacture something.
Right.
So I do get a little bit wary about some of these reactions. It's like, is it? And I think with us, like, we try to be extremely honest with the reactions.
That's true. And people say like, oh, I don't know why you guys are reacting that way. I'm like, but that's how I would.
This is my honest reaction. So
this is how I would actually
this
react.
Is the real deal.
I'm not trying to like put on a dog and pony show for you.
Right.
Like what you're seeing on my face as I am looking at these games is literally how I feel about them in the moment. Mm-hmm. Like I might change my mind once I see more of a game.
Yeah.
Or play it.
Right.
And sometimes I have to walk back a reaction like, oh, initially I thought it didn't look that good, but then I played it and it's great, Like that can definitely happen. But when we react, it's like truly, I'm not that great of an actress, so I really can't do it. I cannot manufacture
And I feel kind of icky doing that too.
I physically can't.
Yeah.
Like, unless you want to give, like, I
oh my God, the new Sonic game's here, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah,
my life's completed.
Yeah, it's like, did you take like an acting class so you can cry on command? Because I certainly can't do that.
I think that the legendary reactor is Etika.
Oh my gosh,
the ones where he had like the heart monitor on.
Oh, I love
or it's like
that
a stroke of genius. Like we tried to do something like that. Didn't pan out the same way.
No, he's amazing.
But yeah, I think he's been like the biggest inspiration for a lot of people.
And his reactions were also extremely genuine.
Yeah.
Which is why I think people liked him, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
We got Kai X next. What is the first game you remember hearing voice acting in? For me, I think it was Star Fox 64, and I just remember being blown away that General Pepper was talking in English out loud.
What was the first game? It must have been an N64.
No, so mine was well before the N64.
Okay.
In Tecmo Bowl. It's like, touchdown! This super
does that
garbled.
count? I guess it's not
Why would it
dialogue.
not? It's a voice that they put in the game. What are you talking about? What's the difference between touchdown and good luck? Same number of syllables. Touchdown, good luck. Got it?
Good luck.
So, I mean, yeah, they've been doing it for a long time, but sometimes it's like, the tech is not there. It's just Yeah. I also was always intrigued at games when they started to put in, like, real video clips into it. And obviously, like, when the Sega CD came out, like, that was one of the big things. Like, we got Night Trap. You can watch this, like, super, like, little postage-sized screen of these weird guys in these weird costumes. I remember... NBA Jam, the Super Nintendo version of that. In the halftime, they had like a 3-second video clip, like from an actual game.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is amazing.
They can do that?
They can do this?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
You're a big proponent of full motion video.
I am, and you know who does it really well is Remedy.
Yeah.
Like all the Alan Wake stuff. You think that will come off as so cheesy?
I love those Remedy NES games.
They really figured it out. I'm saying like they figured it out for the modern era.
Yes.
But you know what was also good as an FMV is Chrono Trigger. We just played that recently.
Oh, in the more current version.
Yeah.
With the animated.
Scenes.
Yeah.
Toriyama style, like art style.
Right.
Those were good. Yeah.
So you don't have an answer.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay, fine. The local blacksmith is next. If one of you had to, quote, go away for 2 months on a critical mission for the channel. No contact / no internet.
Oh no!
Who would you ask to temporarily replace the other host? So let's see. If Krysta was sent to prison for 2 months
for fraud, for tax fraud,
for some sort of fraudulent activity, who would I bring on?
Bring on to replace me?
Honestly,
nobody.
It would be somebody that I don't think people would know. I think it would be somebody, that we worked with or that I worked with previously.
Okay.
And that I just know really well and would be able to have these sorts of conversations with.
Who? Say it.
I don't know. I said nobody knows their name. They're not.
I know.
They're not big names.
Who is it? Who are you going to replace me with?
And it's like, yeah, I could probably bring in, some other creator, but I think I would. It needs to be somebody that I know really well.
Yeah.
To have that kind of like very easygoing.
Yeah. Producer Stephanie.
She's definitely a great option. I don't know if she's available. She's
very busy. She's
extremely busy.
She's very importante now.
She's making it happen in high places these days.
She really is.
So I don't know if I can count on her.
She's making that bread.
Yes.
Like big
She's
time.
making it rain.
Yeah.
How about you?
I feel like I would more so do like the rotating guests.
Oh, that's fun.
Approach.
Yeah.
And I will probably just bring on people that, to your point, like that we know super well, that we can have this same level of easy conversation with. But yeah, I feel like we have enough people that I could probably bring on a guest. Like 2 months, I would need 8 guests, no problem. Rotate them through, In
General Pepper's words, good luck with that.
Yeah, you can bring on some of our old Nintendo friends. Yeah. You can bring some creators in. But yeah, I think that's a better approach than having like the same person for the whole 2 months.
How about 2 years, you and I?
Well, that's different.
What do you think of that?
That's different.
Okay. We have Vidgmictor next. Back when Vidgmictor was just level 1. Isn't that adorable?
Oh, a baby Vidgmictor.
Mini Vidgmictor. The Nintendo Switch certainly tracks the exact playtime of each game played on the console, but keeps that information from the user and instead only shows a fuzzy time when the player looks into their own user info. Quote, a little while or X hours or more.
That's true.
The Wii U and 3DS show the exact playtime for each and every bit of software. Do either of you have any idea why this might be?
Well, they are tracking so much more of your data than you think, but they kind of don't want you to know that they're tracking you. So I think they try to keep it vague. But obviously, on the back end, they know the exact play times.
Yeah, they can get extremely specific.
Yeah, and everything else that you're doing and thinking. So I think that they do feel like they don't want to invade your privacy too much by letting you know just how much information they have on you, which is a lot and a lot more than you think. So they try to keep it a little bit more like loose on the playtime stuff at least.
And this is just my own guessing. Like, I wonder if they see some of the fixation that is out there of like, oh, I played X many hours or, I did this many in a day or something like that. And they're just like, let's just kind of take a step back from this and keep it a bit more vague.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's, maybe focus more on the game than, is my hour count 99 hours or is it 100 hours? I need to know. It's like, that's actually not as important as your experience.
If you had fun with this.
That feels to me like a Nintendo-ish rationale for scaling back.
The Nintendo was always reluctant to confirm. Like when media would ask us, like, how long is this game? They would tell us like, don't confirm the exact number because it's going to depend on the player, which is true. Like, depends on how you play. If you're a completionist, it's going to take you much longer to beat a game than, just playing through normally. So I feel like they also don't want you to equate some kind of value to your playtime. It's like, oh, I only played this game for 15 hours, then it must not worth it.
This person's better than me because they played for X many more hours.
Right.
I think they see those fixations and they don't think it's good. Now, when I see Mysterious Trainer Mike, who is a friend of mine, and I see that he's played Rocket League for 700 hours, I definitely feel some kind of way about it. I said, Michael, you better be a world-class Rocket League player if you played for 700 hours.
He's pretty good. He plays it socially.
You need to be in esports.
You used to make fun of me because on the DS, it would track your exact time, but I would do that thing where I would fall asleep.
You told me you would fall asleep. And I'm like,
then I'd leave the DS open or the 3DS or whatever, and then it would be like, you played 1,000 hours of whatever, and you're like, that's not true.
This is like paying bots to follow you on social media. You doing that too?
I'm not. They're not bots.
You sending some money off to Brazil or something? What are you doing now?
No, I swear.
It's a gameplay bot.
Yeah, but it's
like a mouse jiggler.
But I would fall asleep all the time, and it would be like my playtime would never be accurate because I would like have like a face print on the touch screen. Maybe I was playing in my sleep. Who knows?
We got a question from Who is Bowser Jr.'s mom? I like your discussion on leaks. This is a discussion from 2022.
Oh,
still relevant.
Still relevant. Nothing has changed.
If only look at the date.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
November 15th, 2022. If only Nintendo could take some of the energy they spent on trying to hide everything under the sun and channel it into something meaningful, like improving the NSO network. What do you think would be more important for Nintendo to tackle than endless secrecy?
Well, they're tackling the secrecy because they really believe in that moment of surprising, even though we can't really say that word.
Say it now.
At Nintendo, I can say it now. Of surprising the fans with the announcement. They really believe in that moment, and I kind of get where they're coming from. That is a moment that once you take it away, you cannot get back. Right? You have one opportunity to tell somebody something for the first time. See their reaction and make sure that the thing that you're telling them is like cool to them. So I do get it. I also agree that they get a little fixated on things like this.
When it becomes this like life or death thing.
Yeah, then it's like a
feels
little
like
rough.
this could be a movie, as we have joked in the past. Like I think
Get me
that's
Piero!
where it gets taken a little
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, I feel like they can channel it into like, again, just learning a little bit more about how in this modern day and age, how people
Co-streaming seminars.
Learn to use OBS, please, Nintendo. But they should, I think, be a little bit more plugged into how people are engaging with Nintendo content. Like, they are so, and for better or worse, they are so, like siloed in their ivory tower. They barely look out the window to see what is happening. And sometimes that's good because there's a purity to that. But other times I feel like they have such like a detached relationship with people that love them and love their games that it's a little sad, like if they can spend more time building, understanding why someone loves Nintendo and how they want to love Nintendo so they can celebrate those moments. I think that would be great, because it does feel like they're just very kind of detached from it. It's like, you can love Nintendo, but you can love it the way that we want you to.
Yeah, we did do a weekly report that went out to a lot of people in different regions, people. And it was like, here's what's happening in the community around Nintendo, and it was a lot of fan-made stuff and a lot of fan-created trends, and sadly, we had to do a lot of self-censoring in that report because people started to really high up people started to respond I don't like this, or this is bad, let's make sure we never do anything like that. And it's that's not what this is for.
Right.
This is us giving you a window into the things that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not suggesting that we should do this. We're not suggesting a Bowsette art museum. But you should know. But you should be aware.
Yeah.
And I never liked some of the reactions that we got because it was just taken the wrong way.
It was very head in the sand. And the sense of we want to control these things that are clearly out of your control.
Right.
You cannot control what people engage with.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, but you don't have the power to do that. So, yeah.
Final question is from Mikey. At what point did you guys realize you would be best friends for life?
This one is not from 2022. This one's from yesterday.
I think it is, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. For life is a long time. My life is still ongoing. There's still time for this to go in a different direction.
But it's spelled L-Y-F-E.
I do like that.
I do
Friends
like
with a Z, for life, yes.
Friends. At what point did we realize? It wasn't in the very beginning because, again, you were weird and I didn't like you. But I feel like there was this one PAX where we did have a night. I think we like did something, like we went to like dinner and then we had like a normal, not part of work conversation. It wasn't like we were, just talking and passing in the office, or it was like finally we can talk to each other like in a context of just like, you're just like another person and I'm another person. Let's just have a regular conversation. And then I realized you were not weird and that you're pretty cool. So.
Oh, that's nice. I think, like, again, maybe to like my mentality of like not wanting to open up people right away. It's like there was a lot of trust that was built up over time. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm a distrustful person, but there are a lot of things where it's like I'll do the best job of doing this. I'll just do it myself. But I really did come to trust you of like, if I ask her to do this thing, it will get done really well and I won't need to worry about it. And obviously like there's a lot of components to like becoming friends, but like I think that was definitely a big one of like, she's very like, it's just days like I trust you with my life.
Really?
If you and I think that's good because it's like we have a lot of disagreements sometimes, and we both share each other's point of view.
Yeah.
But if you're like strongly arguing one point of view, it's like, yeah, I should probably listen to this, and she's probably right.
Oh.
So it's not like, well, I need to prove you like how right I am. It's like, no, I really trust your opinion and your outlook, and if you feel that passionately about it, we should do it. And I'll definitely say I told you so if it doesn't work out. But I'll definitely say yes.
We are A/B testing some thumbnails right now because we had an argument about them.
We had a disagreement, yes.
Yes, that's true. I think that there are lots of components to becoming friends, and trust is definitely one important facet of that. But yeah, I don't think that you have ever done anything in the many, many years that we've known each other that's ever called like your character or any of that into question. It wasn't like you did something, I was like, oh my God, I never thought he would do something like that. That's horrible or whatever. So as long as you don't like do anything like that, I think we'll probably be friends for life.
Still time.
Still time.
It's all been building up to this grand betrayal. It's coming. Just wait.
You're like, I'm on the run from the law. Will you hide me as a fugitive? And I'm like,
so I'm spending 2 months in the prison again.
You're not.
It's all linked together.
You're not the Sonic guy with his little top hat in prison. You're not him.
Thank you to everybody who sent in a question in 2021. We loved reading them. 2 years later, 3 years later, how many years?
See, I told you we would eventually answer them.
However many years later this was. Let's wrap up the show by shouting out some great Patreon subscribers.
We shall. And starting with our wonderful final boss, Aaron Hash. Da, 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 da,
Once the boss, always the boss. Aaron Hash.
Yes, we love Aaron. All right, here come the superstars. Ben Eichhorn.
Maru Mayhem.
Eigenverse.
Kiss My Flapjack.
Mike Chin.
Roy Eschke.
Switching it up, _
Fijian Life.
Link, the hero of Winds.
Angela Bycroft and her Pig Molly.
Thomas O'Rourke.
Kyle LaBeouf.
Roberto Nieves.
Frederick Ulf Conradson.
Andrew Uhas.
Chili.
Bruce Dash.
Simon.
Manuki.
And Master Discord.
Whoop whoop. Wow. All right, are you ready for the one-up club?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Aaron Burgundy.
Ale Alejandro.
Archimedes.
Astrodev.
Awesome46.
Bad Moon Horizon.
Ben GB.
Big N Gamer with a Y.
Bookham Dano.
Bookishly Fab.
Brandon Cavapil.
Brook Obscura.
Brovac Novak.
Called the Space Cowboy.
Cameron.
Chadir.
Shelly Squirrel.
Chris Q.
Christopher Lay.
Captain Alex.
Crimcat.
Cristobal.
Dachshund.
Doinko.
Elite Peach.
Spars 50.
Everything is awful.
Fart Priest 69.
Furbound.
Fernie and Just Forever.
Fox Deploy.
Garth the Wolf.
Gartooth.
Guilty Phoenix 42.
Heroic.
Iris Marin.
Jay Rando.
Jack Hoving.
Jeffrey Hernandez.
Jesse Hernandez.
Jonathan Rowe.
Jordan Collette.
Jordan Hemmerly.
Joshua Clements.
Juji Fruit.
Justin Lemminger.
Kawa 2796.
Keith Kwan.
Kevin Delane.
Kilo Kibo.
Christorati Elf.
Christopia Party With Me.
Kyle Gamer Berry Rookie.
Kyle Kretzer.
Lazy Cat for Coffee.
Lex.
Lit.
Lynn.
Macho Potato.
Mad Dog 5981.
Magnificent Easy G plus Callie Marie.
Marky Man 64.
Mario Man 392.
Mbukar.
Mecha Dragon 101.
Megan.
Michael Cravens.
Mikey.
Mr. Ryan 07.
Modemania.
Mr. Andy Pond.
Mr. Beans and Dip.
MSN Poke Gamer.
Mytran.
Nasir.
Nathan Burkhart.
Naif E.
Ninja 11.
Pangy.
Palsy Pace.
Paul Gill Network.
Prime Factor.
Prince Charmless.
Reaver.
Raintech.
Record Rumble.
Ryuji Utsuhu Okuu.
Riot 1.
Rob.
Rocks.
Ryanetta.
Sakura Sky.
Sharif Jackson.
Shinri.
Schmills.
Slowbro.
Schnazzle.
Spacey Poo.
Spicy Munchkin.
Steel Citron.
Swimmy Fish.
Tales of Link.
Tay 120 and 64.
Teal Fox 64.
The Kagers.
The Shark Among Men.
Thomas Alvarez.
Three Rivers.
Timmy V.
Topher Schmofer.
Torcheeks.
Totally Joe Ed.
Travis Torline.
Trajowie.
Tugs Puppy Bear.
Tuscoo.
Tyler Geis.
Video Game Stupid.
Vig Michter.
Viridian.
Virtual Bot.
Weeb Kingdom.
WG Grizzy.
What Up Khalil.
YU.
Wicked Davy.
Will Johnson.
Zelgaroth.
Zapatty.
And Zoid.
Oh boy. Ryuji is back.
It's fun when people come back.
I do like it when people come back. Yes. I do like it when people come back. All right.
Well, the Krysta hologram is almost out of batteries, so it'll be time to wrap this one up.
Malfunctioning. If you'd like to support us, please join us on patreon.com/Kit and Krysta.
Another great way you can help us is if you are watching on video, you can subscribe. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and leave us a comment. And if you're one of our great audio listeners, you can also subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and a written review, if you please. All of those things really help.
And we're on the social. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Threads. All right, we'll be back next week as real people, as real humans.
On this timeline again.
On this timeline
Yes.
once again. And we'll see you then. Bye!